Tonight, Melbourne's booming outer suburbs in the west and southeast, the target of major election promises. A rate rise on Cup Day looks likely, with banks worried about rising inflation. Big crowds back at Flemington for the first time since the pandemic as Derby Day kicks off the Cup Carnival. Wives and children of Islamic State fighters flown to Australia. Geelong, the early winner of the Victorian Commonwealth Games. And later, the Hollywood star spotted making a movie down under.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Blake Johnson starts now.
Good evening. Drivers in Melbourne's west are being promised $1.5 billion in road upgrades if the Liberals win the state election. Victorians go to the polls 4 weeks from today, and both major parties have made big spending pitches to lure voters.
Walking through the new state-of-the-art Heart Hospital.
G'day, how you going? Very well, thanks.
The Premier made another commitment to revive Victoria's health system.
If we are re-elected, we will invest up to $295 million at the Dandenong Hospital.
The emergency department will be expanded to cater to 12,000 more patients a year as hospital cash from the Commonwealth dries up.
A proper partnership is a 50-50 equal effort partnership.
During the pandemic, the Morrison government went halves on health funding. But come January 1, the deal drops back to 55% from the states and 45% from the Commonwealth. Victoria to lose $1.4 billion over 4 years.
We indicate that 50-50 is what should be the ongoing arrangement. But those arrangements are not due for renegotiation until 2025. In the meantime, we're pushing as hard as we can.
Everything with Daniel Andrews was a fight. Everything was a fight. He fought Scott Morrison. He personally abused Josh Frydenberg. He hectors, lectures, berates the rest of us. And now he rolls over to his mate Albanese.
The opposition out today too, with big promises of its own for roads in Melbourne's west.
$1.5 billion. It's the right thing to do for Melbourne's west, who need their roads upgraded.
Included in the package, $700 million to upgrade the Western Highway between the Ring Road and Melton, $231 million for a Bulla bypass between Bulla Diggers Rest Road and Somerton Road, and $523 million to duplicate major roads.
They're sick of waiting. They're sick of the promises. They're sick of the potholes that they've got under 8 years of the Andrews government.
The Premier is still reeling from the resignation of Minister Jala Pulford yesterday, the 8th senior MP to quit. Today, though, a very different reaction to Adam Somurek's sudden resignation from the upper house. The former Labor power broker saying he's sick of sharing a workplace with Dan.
Nothing. I've got no comment to make about that.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
The big four banks warn inflation will peak higher than expected, signalling another interest rate rise next week. Odds are now firming. The Reserve Bank could hit mortgage holders with a 0.5% increase on Cup Day.
Testing his skills on the basketball court. The Prime Minister misses a few hoops at a new regional sports centre, but acknowledges the cost of living crisis is no game. Prices for just about everything continues to soar, up 7.3% from a year ago.
Labor knows that Australian families are doing it tough right now.
And the big four banks predict it's about to get worse. ANZ believes inflation will reach 8.1% by December, Commonwealth Bank 8%, Westpac and NAB 8.5%. That's higher than the Reserve Bank and Treasury's original forecasts.
Next week we get the RBA statement and then they upgrade their forecast. They're going to have no choice really but to push up their inflation forecast above 8%.
It means even more interest rate hikes to come, leaving millions of Australians thousands of dollars out of pocket.
Interest rates are going to go up somewhat further than we previously thought. So eventually we think the cash rate will be in the high threes, say 3.85.
And with more pain on the way, economists are advising Australians to watch their spending this Christmas.
Certainly use any bonuses you've got to pay down the mortgage rather than undertake spending that you may regret later as the economic circumstances become more difficult.
The budget predicts a nightmare scenario. If inflation inches towards 9%, interest rates will go up much higher. There could be massive job losses and the economy will move closer to recession. The opposition says the government needs to step up.
They showed that they simply don't have a credible plan to deal with the cost of living crisis that's facing Australians right now.
An unfunded cash splash through the budget would have simply fuelled inflation.
Hoping things get better next year. Jennifer Beshwati, 7 News.
A crowd of more than 71,000 has defied the rain and wind to attend the first day of the Melbourne Cup Carnival at Flemington. It was Derby Day's lowest crowd outside the pandemic in 25 years.
A sea of black and white filled Flemington. Fashion, drinks, bets back on track.
I already won $11. Come talk to me. I'm here all day. Free tips.
The grey skies not deterring keen punters as Derby Day opens the gates to this year's Cup Carnival.
We came to celebrate with friends, get dressed up and just have fun.
As the rain clouds rolled in, umbrellas became the must-have accessory. Some racegoers determined to battle the elements to maintain prime position.
We're already here, we've got the brollies, we've got our jackets over us, we've got the chairs, we're sweet.
Doesn't matter about the weather, we haven't been here for about 3 years, we just need to have a good day.
The iconic birdcage made a triumphant return too. The champagne was free-flowing as Melbourne's royalty rolled in.
It's nice to dress up, good to be back at the track.
This marquee was offering free hair and makeup.
Whoever wants to touch up can come in.
Fashions on the Field marked its 60th year at the park with a focus on gender-neutral looks.
Well, I really wanted to go for something very subtle today.
3 contestants strutted their way to the next round, including Emma Scodolaro, after competing for 11 years.
This has been a dream of mine my whole life since I was a little girl watching it on television, so I just can't believe it.
The main race of the day came down to the final 50 metres. Manzois bolted home to win the Penfolds Victorian Derby.
Manzois is wearing it down, coming on and won the Derby!
The theme for Derby Day is black and white, but the forecast for the Cup Carnival is definitely grey, with the Melbourne Cup looking like having the worst weather of all the race days. More than half of all racegoers are expected to use public transport over the next week, with more than 1,000 extra services added. Metro Trains is using drones to quickly spot illegal activity, like horse protesters. Now all eyes look to Tuesday for the biggest racing day of all. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
Widespread showers and storms return to much of Victoria early next week. Estelle Grieping has all the details. Estelle, that's as many of our dams are close to overflowing.
Well, Blake, 5 of our 10 major reservoirs are currently sitting at 100% capacity, including the Thomson, Tarago, Yanyin, Maroondah and O'Shanassy dams. Levels at the Thomson Dam have reached the spillway for the first time since 1996. But Melbourne Water says at this stage this isn't cause for concern because the spillway is designed to safely move that excess water on. Residents in Sale and Walhalla are being warned they might notice higher and faster water flow than usual. Now, this all comes as we prepare for more widespread showers and possible thunderstorms from about Monday onwards, with unseasonably cold temperatures up to 16 degrees below average. And Blake, the Bureau's also issued a damaging winds warning for parts of Melbourne. I'll have the details after sport.
OK, we'll see you soon, Estelle. Thank you. Wives and children of Islamic State fighters have returned home to Australia in a top-secret operation. They followed their husbands overseas before becoming stranded in Syrian detention camps. The government's now trying to make sure there is no threat to the community.
After flying into Sydney in secret, the most controversial of homecomings.
It was hugs and tears, and it was a very, very emotional moment. It's been an overwhelming day. It's been a joyous day.
I think it is putting Australians at risk. They've made a decision to bring back wives of terrorists.
The 4 families of men who went to fight for Islamic State and are now dead or jailed, including Kamal Debussi's daughter Mariam and her 3 children, who've spent the last 3.5 years in detention camps in Syria after IS was defeated.
The kids are opening presents and toys, the ones that are awake anyway.
Handed over to Australian officials on Thursday, then flown to Sydney via Dubai.
It's quite disappointing that the federal government has done this under the cloak of secrecy.
National security advice is that it's not appropriate to be discussing
those details.
The repatriated women tonight in secure accommodation, in a statement saying, "We want to express our regret for the trouble and hurt we have caused, especially to our families, that they are so thankful and excited to have the opportunity to rebuild our lives. We will fully cooperate with all Australian law enforcement agencies." Counter-terrorism investigators still to decide whether they will be charged. It now falls to New South Wales authorities to help reintegrate the families into the community with everything from counselling to healthcare to schooling. The state government said today it sought an assurance from the Commonwealth that their return would pose no security or safety risk to the public, but said it received no such assurance. They expect to be monitored once released to the care of family in the community. Paul Kadak, 7 News.
A second motorbike rider has been killed in 24 hours on Victorian roads after a crash at Woodend this morning. Yesterday, a rider died when 4 motorcycles collided on the Hume Freeway north of Melbourne. He was father of 4, Barry Porter from New South Wales. The riders were part of a Christian motorcycle club. Online tributes describe him as a selfless and generous man who went above and beyond for his family and the church. And police have booked more than 500 motorists on the first day of their long weekend road blitz. Flooded roads and new potholes are making travel much more dangerous.
If you hit a pothole or you swerve to miss a pothole and all of a sudden you're on the wrong side of the road, the result of that can be catastrophic.
Operation Furlong started yesterday and already 368 drivers have been caught speeding. Vic Roads has revealed a new licence identity system for drivers affected by the Optus data breach. It comes as the federal government's war against hackers ramps up.
It's been an uncertain time for Vic Roads customers caught up in the data breach. Now, in an email, they've been told they're getting a new driver's licence that comes with a unique number, in addition to their licence number.
It's like an added layer of protection over an existing licence that may have been compromised.
Cybercrime costs the economy $30 billion a year.
There's not a consumer sitting watching the television tonight who hasn't received a scam telephone, a scam text.
The federal government now wants to intercept international hackers at the cyber border using telecommunications companies.
The scale and the persistence of scammers is incredible, and something has to be done.
Software currently used only by Telstra will stop users from clicking on suspicious websites and block scam calls and texts. The government also considering banning companies from paying ransoms.
That'd be necessary to make sure that the law is enforced.
Experts say too many Australians are making it easy for hackers by using common passwords. The top ones include 12345, password ABC123, QWERTY and password 1.
People should use a mix of upper and lower case numbers and other symbols to strengthen their passwords.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
The number of available rental properties in Melbourne has dropped to the lowest in the country. The total number of vacant homes online declined by 32% in the past year, and they're getting snapped up quickly with a reduction in the number of days a rental is listed. Melbourne house prices have plummeted by an average of $53,000 since February. Notorious rock and roller Jerry Lee Lewis has died at 87, just days after his death was falsely reported. The singer changed the course of music with hits like Great Balls of Fire, but his career was rocked by scandal.
Here is jumping and jolting Jerry Lee Lewis.
1957, and a 21-year-old from Memphis, Tennessee, shakes the very foundations of music.
Whole lot of shaking going on.
Lewis claimed before him there was no rock and roll.
I learned to play pretty fast, pretty quick.
A trailblazer who taught himself to play, his parents mortgaging their farm to buy his first piano.
If that piano could talk, we'd both be in trouble.
Goodness and gracious, great balls of fire.
He was called the Killer. His flamboyant style, the keys to his success, from the $1 Million Quartet with Elvis and Johnny Cash.
You shake my nerves and you rattle my brain.
To a revealing biopic exposing his out-of-control private life.
Goodness gracious, great balls of fire.
There were arrests and addictions to drugs and drinking, a fistfight with rock star Janis Joplin, and crashing a Rolls Royce into Elvis's Graceland mansion with a loaded gun. The last straw, marrying his 13-year-old cousin. It wrecked his career with concerts cancelled and radio bans.
It took me 12 years to make that comeback.
Jerry Lee first toured Australia in 1958. He was still packing them in 30 years later.
It's a great pleasure to be back with you tonight here in Melbourne, Australia.
On Wednesday, there were false reports Jerry Lee Lewis had died, but today, confirmation, the star is gone.
I love you. I couldn't have done it without you.
In the United States, David Woodward, 7 News.
Geelong has emerged as the big winner for the 2026 Commonwealth Games. As well as hosting the closing ceremony, major infrastructure projects will be built there.
In Geelong, they're head over heels. Cardinia Park will host the Games closing ceremony.
Around 1 billion eyeballs will be on Geelong and beyond Cardinia Park as people tune in.
But young athletes will benefit most from $300 million of new infrastructure in Geelong's growth areas. At Armstrong Creek, they'll build a new complex for the swimming and diving events. At Warn Ponds, a state-of-the-art centre for the gymnastics and weightlifting.
After the Games, there'll be recreation spaces that will be used for the community for decades to come.
And near Warn Pond Station, an athletes' village, also a Games legacy.
To add to the affordable and accessible housing stock in the region.
There will be a frantic big build at all 5 Commonwealth Games regional hubs.
We should be getting into the ground at some point during the middle of next year, back end of next year, on those major venues.
And that means a tight deadline to get all the new infrastructure completed in time for the opening ceremony at the MCG on the 17th of March 2026.
Yeah, look, this is a huge challenge. We have 1,235 days before we open up.
We've got to get our skates on, get things moving.
But so inspiring for Geelong weightlifter Brenna Keane, who came 5th in her event at Birmingham.
To be here and have everyone to be able to come and watch me will be such an incentive over the next few years to keep training hard, competing hard, and hopefully get back there.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
The Melbourne Cup field has been finalised. Abby Jelmy, the field is in for the great race on Tuesday.
Yeah, Blake, we'll have all the latest details from the all-important barrier draw shortly as a Kiwi combo shines at Flemington on a day dominated by a superstar jockey without a ride in the Cup, while a famous racing duo strikes gold in Sydney. Why Australia must be ruthless against Ireland or face World Cup peril after an MCG washout. Also, the AFLW season goes right down to the wire. Ferrari in a spin in Mexico.
Next year. Big crash. Big crash. That's a nasty one, that.
Yeah, you don't like to see it. And 7 News can reveal the most popular player in the AFL. That's an exclusive and it's coming up.
All right, Abby, see you soon. Thank you. There are new questions over the mother convicted of killing 4 of her children. A twist in the case of Australia's worst female serial killer is next on 7 News. Also, a driver turns homewrecker in Melbourne's north. A frightening hammer attack inside the home of a top American politician and one of the world's most famous couples headed for divorce. An out-of-control car has smashed through the front yard of a house in Melbourne's north. The 21-year-old driver barrelled through a brick wall and the roller door of the garage in Campbellfield just after 1 this morning. Luckily, no one was home at the time. The driver was taken to hospital for observation. More than 150 scientists are pushing for the release of convicted child killer Kathleen Folbig. A public inquiry just weeks away will hear new evidence that could clear the mother over the deaths of her 4 children.
Science could clear serial killer Kathleen Folbig, but was the evidence there all along? Karen Hall recalls the frightening moment she says baby Laura stopped breathing while she was babysitting the 12-month-old.
I actually had to start CPR, but thankfully she came round.
7 months later, Laura died. In 2003, Kathleen Folbig was jailed for 40 years for murdering 3 of her children and the manslaughter of her 4th. But last year, medical experts revealed Sarah and Laura carried a genetic mutation that could cause sudden death, prompting a second public inquiry into her convictions.
She didn't do it. It's cruel.
151 scientists that have signed a petition asking for her pardon because the science is so compelling that these children most likely died of natural causes.
After losing 2 of her own children, Jane Hanson's personal tragedy inspired her new podcast about Kathleen Folbig.
I kept a diary at the same time, and there's a lot of self-loathing and a lot of self-blame of myself.
The first 2 weeks of the inquiry next month will focus on cardiac and genetic evidence, but the hearing doesn't have the power to compel Kathleen's husband Craig to give a blood sample, which could shed more light on the children's DNA.
It's not just about proving that Kath didn't kill her children. This data then goes on a worldwide database to be able to help other people going forward.
The first episode of News Corp's podcast, Mother's Guilt, drops tomorrow. Ashley Hansen, 7 News.
The husband of one of America's most powerful women has been bashed by intruders at their California home. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi wasn't there at the time, but it appears she was the intended target.
Nancy Pelosi finishes a flying dash back to San Francisco and on to the hospital treating her husband of 59 years. Hours earlier, police had found 82-year-old Paul Pelosi holding a hammer and struggling to fend off an attacker.
The suspect pulled the hammer away from Ms. Pelosi and violently assaulted him with it.
The accused, David DePape, 42, apparently smashed his way into the upscale home shortly before 2:30 a.m, shouting, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" Eerily familiar.
Where are you, Nancy? We're looking for you.
The hunt for the House Speaker.
Nancy!
A sad feature of the January 6th riot. The politician second in line to take over from the US president forced to flee a violent mob. Now, more than 350 right-wing campaign ads target their villain of choice, Nancy Pelosi, ahead of midterm elections in 11 days.
I'm going to Washington to stop the Pelosi agenda.
The Speaker's office confirming Paul Pelosi had surgery to repair a skull fracture and serious injuries to his right arm and hands. Doctors expect a full recovery. Police say they plan several charges for the accused, including attempted murder. They're not commenting on motive, though many already see the case as a symptom of America's hyper-polarised politics. In the United States, Tim Lester, 7 News.
One of the world's most famous power couples has officially called it quits after 13 years of marriage. Supermodel Gisele Bündchen and NFL legend Tom Brady have taken to Instagram to confirm an amicable split. Brady's decision to return to football at the age of 45 is believed to have played a role in the breakup. A promise to have registered nurses in aged care homes 24/7 is under fire tonight. Why nurses say there's no way Anthony Albanese's plan will work is next on 7 News. Also from Melbourne to a UK jail, the woman behind bars for murdering her friend. Kmart recalls a children's toy over fears it might be dangerous, and the Hollywood star spotted filming a new movie in the middle of Sydney. A federal government promise to have a registered nurse in aged care facilities around the clock is in doubt tonight. Anthony Albanese says it's the solution to our aged care crisis, but nurses argue it'll be impossible to find enough staff.
A headline election promise.
A Labor government will solve the crisis in aged care.
At the centre of Anthony Albanese's quest for government.
Our plan. Registered nurses on site 24/7.
Allocating $2.5 billion in this week's budget for the plight, but is it achievable?
Realistically, no.
Registered nurse Glenn O'Driscoll travelled to Parliament this week to hear how the new government solution will work and where it plans to source thousands of nurses in a matter of months.
The labour pool is limited, and we do struggle every day to just get enough people to do basic care.
I cannot see anything that is going to enable the Australian care sector to be able to find the workforce that it needs to be able to deliver on the commitments that have been made.
It's estimated up to 14,000 registered nurses will need to flood the industry by July 1 next year to achieve Labor's promise of having a registered nurse on site at all times and at least 40 minutes of care for each resident every day by October 1.
I agree it's a short time frame and I'm really up against it.
Feeling the real pinch are families like Kerry Lennox and her mum Joan.
You're lucky, it's nice and warm.
Joan sleeps in the garage and bathes with a bucket.
There's no shower and she can't walk up the stairs to use my shower.
But they believe it's better than residential aged care.
I would worry too much about if she was getting proper care.
The opposition says it will support the reforms but will push for changes to ensure facilities won't be penalised if they can't meet staffing standards.
We can't be making promises to older Australians and their families that can't be met.
And promises to people like Kerry and her mum Joan. Rachel Baxter, 7 News.
Russia claims 82,000 extra soldiers are now fighting in Ukraine following its controversial recruitment drive targeting young men. Moscow says it's already hit its target of 300,000 new recruits, with 2/3 of them currently undergoing combat training. The rest are in Ukraine, half of them fighting on the front line to help protect better trained soldiers. An Australian woman has been jailed for life in the UK for murdering her friend in a bitter feud over money. Gemma Mitchell became the first killer to be sentenced live on British TV.
The moment London police handcuffed a killer.
All right, Gemma, at this moment, I'm arresting you on suspicion of murder.
Gemma Mitchell was at home with her mother
Should I get some shoes?
when officers came calling. Born in Australia, Mitchell had returned to Melbourne to work for 5 years in 2010 before settling back in Britain, only to murder a friend she met through church, Mi Queng Chong. Mitchell forged her will to access her $1 million estate after carrying her decapitated body through the street in suitcases, later dumping her decomposing remains 2 weeks later. The victim's sister saying, "I hope she gets what she deserves. She is the crazy one who steals people's belongings after they died." Today, for the first time in English history, a judge passed sentence on a convicted murderer live on TV.
Quite apart from anything else, I am driven to the conclusion that you are extremely devious.
She was sentenced to life in prison with a minimum term of 34 years. But Mitchell's mother believes she's still innocent.
Her DNA is not on the body, so how possibly can she have done it?
A jury disagreed, convicting Gemma Mitchell unanimously. In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
A gunman's opened fire outside a church in Pittsburgh. 6 people were taken to hospital, 1 in a critical condition. The victims include mourners attending a funeral.
Middle school in Alderdice High School.
The funeral was for a 20-year-old man himself, the victim of gun violence just 2 weeks ago. Kmart has recalled a children's toy over fears it poses a potentially deadly choking hazard. The product safety watchdog is concerned a seal on the Anko teething llama toy could detach. Parents are advised to stop their children from using the toy and return it to Kmart for a full refund. Movie magic has made its way to Sydney with filming for a Hollywood blockbuster right outside the 7 newsroom. Crowds gathered for hours to catch a glimpse of Hollywood heartthrob Ryan Gosling.
A front row seat for a Hollywood heartthrob, propelling a skip down Phillip Street, the Sydney CBD screeching to a halt for Ryan Gosling.
I had to walk halfway around Sydney to get back. Can bear with it. It's a one-off.
The 41-year-old Canadian superstar on set for his latest film, The Fall Guy, based on the 1980s TV series where Hollywood stunt actors play bounty hunters on the side. But the exact plot of this film is still a secret. Security on strict instructions to block our view, even from our newsroom. For drivers, it was a showstopper. All lights, cameras and no action as roadblocks caused frustrating queues across the city. Inside the barriers, Martin Place was teeming with cast and crew, including our own Nash Edgerton. The Fall Guy also giving our economy a huge boost. This project is expected to generate $244 million. But those stuck in Sydney's gridlock today aren't sure if it'll be worth a watch.
I probably wouldn't be seeing it anyway, but
I think everybody now thinks they run the show, so...
Perhaps they'll forgive Gosling by the time his film hits the screens in March 2024. Tom Saker, 7 News.
Melbourne has a new fire-breathing chamber. How it's helping protect firefighters is next on 7 News. Also, an AFL star joins hundreds mourning a 15-year-old boy killed while walking home from school. An update on a puppy attacked by home intruders. She's had surgery. And the holiday accommodation with a difference that is set to take off. Actors and sports stars have joined mourners in Perth to remember teenager Cassius Turvey, killed as he walked home from school earlier this month. His family, friends and strangers gathered in a park to console his mother. Among them, actor Ernie Dingo and Dockers star Michael Walters.
Well, I'm here to show my support to the family, and also, a lot of his friends and everyone in the community is going through a lot at the moment.
A 21-year-old man has been charged with Cassius's murder. A new facility in Melbourne is fighting fire with fire. It's helping ensure the gear worn by our emergency services is the safest it can be while they face life-threatening situations.
This mannequin can uphold the most extreme conditions.
When you watch it, it can be quite confronting.
The chamber is used to put the safety gear of our emergency services to the ultimate test.
These are the situations that many of our volunteers and professional firefighters face.
Researchers can observe just how combustible the textiles are to ensure the safest fighting gear as we enter another fire season.
So critically important that we can compare garments and designs against each other and pick what we believe will protect our volunteer firefighters.
The multi-million-dollar RMIT facility in Brunswick is the first of its kind in Australia.
We use this sort of testing for the development of new generation firefighting garments, and generally have to go overseas to places like Canada or the UK.
As well as creating a new generation of protective clothing, it's hoped the facility will also be able to test the flammability of building and automotive materials. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
A puppy badly injured in a home invasion near Ballarat has had successful surgery on her broken legs. Pippa was attacked by intruders at the Groves family farm in Scottsburn on Wednesday. Vets are now confident they won't have to amputate her legs. A GoFundMe campaign has raised $13,000 to cover vet bills. 3 men have been arrested over the burglary. Australia will soon adopt the same DNA tracing technology used to solve hundreds of cold cases in Canada and the US. It digs deeper into DNA than ever before and will be put to work in missing persons cases.
It's the DNA breakthrough heralded with solving hundreds of cold cases and other complex investigations across America and Canada, including the Golden State Killer, now available in Australia.
So we are really excited to be able to deploy it as part of our program in the hope of resolving some of Australia's most enduring cold cases.
Forensic genetic genealogy, they call it.
You could have matches that you can solve in a few hours, and you can have matches that may take a few months. But our cases usually solve within less than 6 months.
The partnership between the AFP and US-based lab Othram will hopefully tackle the extensive collection of 750 unidentified human remains dating back to the 1950s, yet to be linked to missing people.
And what we're able to achieve is potentially links to third and fourth cousins.
We can get a full profile from DNA that has been burnt, and that hasn't been done before.
In short, this technology uses more markers in each sample so they can identify more distant relatives. The importance is clear to Marion Barter's daughter, her mum missing since 1997.
This is new technology that we've never had in Australia before, and I think it's really important that those bones are all tested and everyone equally.
Evan Batten, 7 News.
If you've ever dreamed of lying on a flatbed on a Boeing 737, here's your chance. A grounded jet is being transformed into luxury accommodation in the West Australian wheat belt just outside Perth. The owners won $150,000 in an Airbnb competition to build the unique place to stay.
We'll have the entertaining area down the back, a lounge area in the middle and the kitchen at the front.
The aircraft once belonged to Ozjet, which collapsed after a brief stint in the skies in 2006. Sports next with Abby Gelmy. And Abby, there's breaking news from Flemington.
Well, Blake, the final field is in for the Melbourne Cup and the barriers have just been decided. It's mixed news for Gay Waterhouse. We have more on that next. As Cup Week goes off with a bang for a superstar jockey and a champion trainer in Sydney. Also, time running out for Australia after a World Cup washout. We can exclusively reveal how Dustin Martin has edged out Buddy and Danger for the AFL's People Champion. And the Demons' demolition that fell agonisingly short. Welcome back. The final field for the Melbourne Cup has been locked in with breaking news from the barrier draw. International runner Deauville Legend has further cemented its status as favourite for the Great Race.
9. Barrier number 9 for Deauville Legend. That is a nice draw indeed.
9 is absolutely spot on for us. Ideally, we can get into a nice position early doors. We don't have to work too hard to get there either.
Victorian trainers Kira Ma and David Eustace have 5 runners in the 24-horse field. Gay Waterhouse has 2 runners, with Knight's Order drawing the dreaded Barrier 24. To today's racing, and champion trainer Chris Waller has added the Victoria Derby to his Caulfield Cup triumph this spring, after jockey Michael D steered Manzois to victory at Flemington. Meanwhile, a famous racing duo landed a $5 million gold rush in Sydney.
A successful Kiwi combination, just not the one everyone expected.
Sharp and smart timing. Manzois is wearing it down, coming hard and won the Derby.
Manzois handing trainer Chris Waller his second Victoria Derby. Jockey Michael D and Waller claimed a Caulfield Cup together earlier this spring.
If you said to me before this spring that I'd have 2 major Group 1s coming up, I'd probably laugh.
James McDonald came up short in the Derby, but it was a day out for the country's best hoop at Flemington.
But it's in secret clear. J-Mac riding the lights out. In secret, won it.
Godolphin filly In Secret upstaged the boys in the Coolmore Stud Stakes. An early labour for McDonald's pregnant fiancée Kate Mallion, seemingly the only thing that could stop his winning run.
Settle down, Caitlin, settle down. Don't come too soon.
4 winners on Derby Day for J-Mac, including Oaks contender Zanzella in the Wakeful Stakes and Surefire in the Lexus Archer Stakes. Ice Bath flying up the rail to take out the Group 1 Empire Rose. Craig Williams with an unexpected workout after being thrown off the horse post-race.
She said she did all the running to get her Group 1 and she's made me do all my running home.
At Rose Hill, one of racing's most famous partnerships struck gold.
Fangirl goes to I Wish I Win, who kicked and won. I Wish I Win just from Fangirl.
Peter Moody and Luke Nolan holding on to claim the Golden Eagle and the $5.2 million winner's cheque.
This is the second biggest turf race in the world, isn't it? We'll take it.
I always say it's not how you win them, it's how you celebrate them. I'm going to be nice and bloody pissed after this one, I'll tell you that now.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Australia's MCG washout means they'll need to find a ruthless edge in order to keep their T20 World Cup defence alive. The squad is headed to Brisbane this afternoon, where they'll take on Ireland at the Gabba Monday night. The Aussies must win big to improve their net run rate.
You've got to get into winning positions before you can start thinking about net run rate, otherwise you'll shoot yourself in the foot, really. You've only got to look at Stoyan's innings the other night. I think he sort of almost like something smelling a bit of blood and just going for it.
Australia and England took a point each after last night's match was abandoned without a single ball being bowled. The Stars have claimed the first WBBL Melbourne Derby in Victoria in 1,000 days. Sophie Day took 4 wickets as the Stars bowled the Renegades all out for 91. After taking 3 wickets with the ball, Annabelle Sutherland top scored with an unbeaten 42 as the Stars won by 6 wickets. We've got new insights tonight on which AFL players have superstar status amongst fans. 7 News has obtained exclusive research sent to clubs' bosses this week. And yes, Dustin Martin is king.
Despite just 9 games this season, Dustin Martin remains fans' favourite player.
Dusty Martin from 35 out. Dusty's back.
He benchmarked his first last year and then again this year retained that first spot.
Buddy Franklin second, Dangerfield, Bontempelli, Cripps, Pendlebury and Fife ranked equal third. Petrarca the biggest mover, going from 20th to 9th. The Swans, the most supported AFL club, Collingwood third overall. The highest Victorian team, Richmond 6th, Geelong 7th, North Melbourne last.
So we look at the percentage of passion amongst the entire fan base. We get other clubs like Essendon doing really well in Richmond, or we can look at total number of avid fans where clubs like Collingwood really start to stand out.
The AFL Grand Final ranked as Australia's most popular sporting event, the Australian Open second. The league and 12 clubs use the data, which even breaks down trends including which teams convert supporters to members.
We've got 400,000 Australians on our panel every day.
And Tom Hawkins has had surgery on his left foot to correct a lingering injury he carried throughout the year. The operation expected to delay the star forward's start to next season. Tom Brown, 7 News.
Melbourne has fallen agonisingly short of the AFLW minor premiership. The Demons smashed the Eagles 78-1, but they missed out on top spot by 0.3%. That's just one behind. They'll likely host Adelaide in week 1 of the
the exciting bit now. I mean, it took us a little while to find our groove at the start of the year and had really tough opposition, but yeah, we're just getting going now. I can't wait.
Geelong looks set to grab a place in the top 4 with a dominant lead over the Swans at the Cattery, and the Bulldogs lock in their final spot thanks to a last-gasp goal from captain Ellie Blackburn.
Blackburn through Velardo, generates the kick. Who else? Benelli B!
The Dogs currently in 7th spot and will wait for other results tomorrow to learn of their finals opponent. Melbourne Victory failed to capitalise against a 10-man Brisbane outfit, walking away with a scoreless draw in the A-League. Raw goalkeeper Jordan Holmes was sent off for a tangle with Nick D'Agostino. Despite the extra number, Victory couldn't take the lead and had to settle for a draw. Practice didn't quite go to plan for Charles Leclerc at the Mexico Grand Prix.
Next year,
big
so
crash.
big crash.
That's a nasty one, that. He's obviously lost the rear.
Yeah, unlike his car, the Ferrari driver walked away unscathed. With Dad, MotoGP legend Mick Doonan watching on, Australia's Jack Doohan had his first taste of Formula One as a reserve driver for Alpine. He's chasing a full-time spot on the grid. You got to love that. Just Dad watching on.
Yeah, a bit of support in the stands.
Yeah, why not?
Thank you. Estelle's next with the forecast. Estelle, is this chilly weather hanging around?
Well, Blake, we have a day of sunshine before another cold stretch. I'll have the details next.
On Weekend Sunrise, the looming tax deadline, how to avoid getting stung with late fees, and turning heads at the track. All the fashion tips to carry you through the racing season. Plus, dreaming of an island getaway? The hot new travel trend to consider for your next vacation. Sunday, 7 a.m.
Hello again. We've had a chilly start to the Melbourne Cup Carnival and we could be in store for our coldest Cup day since 1995. But before we get there, we do have at least one dry day, so enjoy that sunshine while you can. This is what it looked like in Frankston today, where it reached a top of 16. In the city, it reached 18 this afternoon after a low of 10. Across the suburbs, we stayed mostly dry, apart from some hit and miss showers. The city received 1.6 millimetres. This is what we're looking like right now. The chance of showers decreases later tonight. Temperatures across the state were around 2 to 5 degrees below average, so it is feeling colder than usual for this time of year. Tomorrow, we're expecting showers and possible thunderstorms to move through, and there is a warning for these areas in yellow for damaging winds. Places like Maryborough, Castlemaine and Bacchus Marsh could be hit with peak gusts of up to 100 kilometres. That warning also covers the Melbourne area, but the wind should only arrive later on, so during the day it should feel quite nice outside. In the city, from a low of 9, we should reach 21. That's our warmest temperature all week. To the 7-day outlook, Monday brings us showers along with the chance of a thunderstorm. The city could get up to 10 millimetres. Those showers ramp up on Tuesday. We could get up to 15 millimetres in the city, along with the possibility of hail in the afternoon and evening. We could also see hail on Wednesday afternoon when we're expecting a shower or two. On Thursday, those hit and miss showers still hang around but don't deliver too much in the way of rainfall. And by Friday, we should stay dry with just a sprinkling of rain. If we get through the cooler week, though, we should be rewarded on the other side, though. Saturday's headed for a top of 18 with a mix of sun and cloud. By then, we would have well and truly dried out, and tomorrow we should savour that sunshine and the mostly dry day. From a low of 9, we're headed for a top of 21. Blake?
All right, Estelle, thank you for that. that is 7 News. Thanks for making us part of your Saturday. We're back with 7 News tomorrow night at 6. From the Melbourne News team, good night.